Alright guys, you are not going to believe this. So I have this old car sitting in my garage, and it was in a no-start situation. I could not start it for the life of me. And I literally worked on this thing for 6 months, and I went through the whole thing front to back and checked all the fuses, and so I just disconnected the battery. I charged it, disconnected the battery, and it's been sitting for like 3 months. I put it all together, and it started right up. I can't even believe it. And this is what it is. It's actually a Porsche Cayenne. And let me tell you, you can tell it's been sitting for a long time. I think it's got some cat prints on it or something. A whole bunch of dust. And let me tell you, this car has a mind of its own. It is an awesome car though. It is really, really nice. Interior is all cherry. And it is, you can't tell really how nice it is because it has like 2 inches of dust on it. But it is an awesome car. And I don't know what was wrong with it, and I don't know why it just all of a sudden started. But I think I'm going to take it for a little test drive. I can't even believe it that I'm back on the road with my Porsche. So I sprayed it off with a little water, and I'm just going to drive it up here around the dead end to see how she does. So this car is high maintenance, let me tell you. I think a Porsche is designed, especially a Porsche Cayenne, it is designed to be driven every day. And if you don't drive it for a few days, it does not like it and it starts freaking out. Looks like I'm back in business though. Alright. Whew. Nice. So I sprayed off the Porsche and dried it off, and take a look at how well this car shines up. This thing is this thing is pretty nice. They have really nice paint jobs on them. And believe it or not, this is actually 14 years old, and it's got about 100,000 miles. When these first came out, they're about $80,000. And in today's dollars, if you adjust for inflation, that is about 100 grand for this car back in 2004. And I actually picked it up for $15,500, if you can believe it. It is a really nice car. And the only thing is parts are pretty expensive, but aftermarket parts on eBay are really affordable, and everybody makes aftermarket parts for it. And I put quite a few miles on it, but I've kind of babied it a little bit. And I put some new taillights on it. I don't know if you've seen the originals that come with the Porsche Cayenne, but this is a different taillight. I got it right off of eBay, and it just pops in. It looks a lot better than the original taillight assembly. And then, I did a little license plate frame and a custom license plate, but I haven't really put a whole lot into it. And I actually put a lot of work into it. Let me show you what it looks like under the hood. So now that I got the Porsche running, I'm almost afraid to turn it off. It's been sitting for so long. I might just let it run for an hour or two. So if you take a look under the hood here, this is kind of what it looks like. If you've ever seen a Porsche Cayenne. And at first, if you were a mechanic looking at this, you would say, well, how do I get to anything? And believe it or not, I have actually probably spent 30 hours under this hood working on this engine. So all these right here, this is actually a beauty cover. This and all this is just plastic, and then you basically take all these off, and this is a beauty cover, here, here, and here. So you take all the covers off, then you can see the engine. And underneath it's kind of the same way. So underneath it's got all these protective covers all underneath And to do an oil change, you have to take off like 20 screws. And so I brought it to the shop. First time, it's kind of sticker shock. You go for an oil change, and an oil change on this car is $200. It's crazy. And it tells you what kind of oil to use. You can only use one kind of oil. It is Mobil 1. And that's kind of the specs. It's a pretty fast car. It's got about, I think it's like 325 horsepower, but it weighs a ton. I think it's over 5,000 pounds, believe it or not. And our little Mini weighs, we have a Mini Cooper, and that thing weighs like 2,000 pounds, and it's only 178 horsepower. I think that Mini's faster than this just because it's so light. And this is all-wheel drive, which is really nice. All-time all-wheel drive. And I just put some new tires on it. Actually, the drive shaft went out, which is kind of weird. So instead of U-joints, it has this weird, like a flexible section in the drive shaft, and I brought it to the dealer for that. And it kind of has another defect. So right below this, all these tubes here, this is the intake manifold underneath here. If you take all the bolts out, the whole intake manifold comes out. And when I first started driving, I first bought it. Oh, I've had it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And when I first got it, I was driving down the highway. I only had it a couple weeks, and all of a sudden, all the antifreeze dumped out on the ground. And come to find out, it's a 12-hour job, and there's plastic pipes underneath that intake manifold that run, there's 2 pipes that run this way underneath there, and it's actually a manufacturer's defect. And Porsche will fix it, but you have to get a dealer to do it, and it's like, I don't know, $5,000 or $7,000, and they'll pay a part of it. So I decided to do it myself. So took the whole thing out and spent a whole weekend tearing the whole thing out. And those tubes, let me tell you, you have to get in there with a hacksaw and cut them out, and then you get in there with a chisel and a file to take those out. And then they have aluminum tubes that go in there as a replacement tubes, and a little section of rubber hose with 2 hose clamps. So I put it all together and drove it for a week, and I realized I forgot to tighten one of the hose clamps all the way. So I went back in there, tore the whole thing apart, and this time it was only like an 8-hour job instead of a 12-hour job. Tightened up the hose clamps, put it all back together. 6 months later, my starter went out, and the starter is actually underneath those 2 cooling tubes, and you have to tear your whole engine apart to get to the starter. And I should have known when I did it. Everyone recommended replacing the starter when you're in there, but you know, a Porsche starter is like $1,000, and you can get them on eBay a lot cheaper than that. So that's kind of the the mechanical, and you can kind of hear it ticking a little bit. If you can kind of hear the engine ticking. Apparently that's another defect where I think they had aluminum sleeves in the engine, and that's actually the rings tapping on the aluminum sleeves. You get a little too much play in there. But people say their engine, even though it kind of taps a little bit, it lasts a long time. So I'm not really too worried about it. I think I have a little over 100,000. And you know, most gas engines you get about 250,000 before the engine needs to be replaced. And the other thing about the engine is I've been looking in scrap yards, and an old engine for a Porsche Cayenne with 100,000 miles is about $5,000. So you definitely don't want the engine to go out, because it's worth almost a third of what the car's worth. But it's a really nice car. I really like it. Alright guys, I'm glad you got to see me fix my Porsche Cayenne, even though I don't really know how I fixed it. Well, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.